Okay, so this is going to be a different sort of video than normal. I sort of did like 30 hours worth of lab work over the past 3 days, double checking a bunch of stuff. And this guide is going to sort of work as like the ultimate guide on what to do after you land Kohaku JB versus someone who's blocking, essentially. That's the point of this guide. So, but before we get into that, I just want to share that relatively recently, and by relatively recently, I mean literally about 4 hours ago, we just got Replay Takeover and Multi Blood. The people in South America, the Brazilian community, actually made a Replay Takeover tool. So I'm going to be testing that out probably over on Tuesday morning, and I'll make a video on it and how to use it probably by like Wednesday or Thursday, likely. Okay? So there is a Replay Takeover tool. Also, I want to give a little bit of backstory to what caused me to go on what is essentially like a 20-hour lab session in just building off the situation off of normal that I've been using for the upper half of like 4 years. And it's like, it's one of those things that, like, oh, this is probably super duper fucking simple, and I probably should not have taken this long to figure it out. It's sort of like when using 623A and like pressure, right? Where it's like super duper obvious, but it's like one of those things you don't bother checking after you played for so long. Because I never saw somebody do this in a set, so I assume like this is like new knowledge, but I could be wrong. Okay, so I played versus Council in a first to 10. I lost like 10-3. The set is in the playlist that I made to host my online VODs. And what I was originally going to do is that I immediately unlisted it because I wanted to make a VOD review for the VOD. But what ended up happening is I got interrupted, so I just did the VOD review by myself. And I noticed the interaction that pissed me off a lot. I was like, okay, I got Council to block the JB here. And I actually had him. I could have easily counter hit him, but I did the wrong thing. But what should I do in situations like that so I can like more consistently get something off of people blocking my JB? Because if you ever heard me talk about H-Kkohaku, you know one of the big things that ticks me off about the character is how often a blocked air normals end up leading into action nothing of note, especially when you space them out correctly. So I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to hit the lab. I'm going to lab out every single situation after a blocked JB at all sorts of different heights. And how do I get max value out of the space JB? And 20 hours worth of labbing later, I got some answers for all the Kohaku players. This information works for every single Kohaku, by the way. We are going to talk about some minor differences between F and C Kohaku at the end of this, but this video is going to plan to be like 15 minutes of me mostly showcasing examples. So first things first, we're going to use Len as our example here because she has both J2C and JC, which are relatively deep hidden normals, and she has the standard air dash that goes in an arc that gains a little bit of height at start and then curves upwards and then comes back down. So we're going to use her as our dummy because I was trying to do this dummy as with I tested like on C Nanya and C Narrow because those are also characters that piss me off when they press buttons after they block a JB. But this stuff is like pretty much universal across the cast. I did a whole bunch of testing. So first things first, you're going to notice in this video that there's no background music, and that's because I'm too lazy to edit it over this. Because I'm gonna be real, I tried recording this for like 2 hours yesterday and I just kept getting off topic or interrupted. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to use the pause tool on OBS in order to make this video as smooth and clean as possible. I mean, we're going to showcase how I set up the dummy, I guess, but like, yeah. So this dummy is set to backdash into double jump, and we also are going to set the dummy to just jump. And this is how we're going to get our two main heights. Like for jump, uh, dummies on all guard. Yep. For dump, we're going to be looking at JB at the this sort of height when she's like ever so like when she's like neutral height or like evenish height position wise to Kohaku. And then the first dummy that I showcase you that super double jump, that's like if they're escaping the corner, like they don't have their double jump because they're that high, of course. And like let's say you're using JB in order to rather from doing a sort of fighting business at that distance, right? So we're going to be looking at all these sorts of situations off of JB so we can get strong answers off of JB. But first things first, let's do the easiest one first. what if you are right next to your opponent and you do JB? It doesn't matter if you do it rising or you do it falling. So what do you do at this position? Answer when you're doing falling is if you're falling, you can easily air unblockable into 5A like that. As you can see, there's pretty much nothing I can do about this. The bigger the character's hurt box is, the easier it is to get an air unblockable on them. However, it is a lot more difficult to get a landing 5B, jump B, because especially if you're playing a non-H-Kkohaku, their JC is horizontal, so it's pretty often that characters are not going to be landing at the same time as you are, or they're going to be threatening their stronger airborne ability. But this is just a situation that you want to be aware of, because especially because if you're really, really fancy, you can get swag combos like you can go into air unblockable 5A into the toe or some nonsense like that. It's just the thing that you want to be aware of in regards to when you do it landing. When you're rising jump B and you're at the same height, you can do something like JC into JA at slightly delayed timing so that you can stagger them and punish them if they try to like air dash or press a button. After the JA, you can do something like 5A in order to unblockable them, or maybe just block string them from the back. Like that. So that's at like when you're super duper close to them. It's also important to note that you can chain into gold air throw after JC or JA if your opponent is close enough to you. If you're rising, it's a lot easier to do JC. Like that's super consistent, and I think the timing on learning how to do it on H and F-Kkohaku is super important. C-Kkohaku, the JC situation is a little bit more tricky because their JC is more vertical, but at that distance normally it connects properly so that you can get a gold air throw afterwards. Okay, now that we've discussed the hyper basic stuff of like when you're right next to them, we're going to be talking about more spaced and nuanced situations that I've actually been able to boil down considerably the last time I've been looking at JV situations like this. So first things first, let me pause it, and we're going to do it at like like we're pretty much using the full horizontal disjoint of JB, and let's see what we're supposed to do in that situation versus opponent at this height. So pause. Okay, so using this frame step tool, I set up a dummy so that is completely almost horizontal, like our position boxes are literally 2 frames away from each other. So what can we do in this situation in order to discourage our opponent from taking their turn back? Like the obvious answer would be doing something like pressing JC, but as you notice, JC will whip, so that means we can't rely on JC to stop your opponent from doing something like air dashing. Like it stops air dashing at this height, but it doesn't stop your opponent from delayed air dashing or doing something like super double jumping or something like that. So JC looks like the correct answer, but it typically does not tend to be the right one, especially in a lot of situations. Now we're going to look at this answer a lot more, but this use your double jump and then your ID back so you can get to the ground as soon as possible tends to be the strongest situation in regards to any sort of JB. Like at any sort of height, if you have double jump and air dash back, doing this after JB is blocked is like the strongest thing you can do, because we're going to see more later, especially as we start using the vertical disjoint more. The frame advantage off of doing this is already pretty good. Like we're +3 if we rocket ourselves downwards with JB, and we have a hitbox that prevents our opponent from being greedy and trying to land on us. In fact, it does so much that we know that if we land safely and they're still above us, that we actually have time to either anti-air or position ourselves to be out of danger. So this is like the sort of cheat code that if you have your double jump and your air dash back, if you double jump immediately and then air dash back immediately, and then JB as soon as possible to rocket yourself to the ground, you're going to be plus enough that you can actually like win the situation outright in a lot of situations. I mean, in this case where we're going to do something, need to do something like IDJB or IDJA, we're going to see that sometimes they randomly counter poke with JB. It's not a counter hit, and you can see that sometimes I counter hit him. But like you can see in this, and when they do something like IDJA, I'm even more plus. I'm so plus that if I notice that they're pressing JA or JB and I don't get hit, I can actually hit 2C and punish my opponent from trying to take your turn so brashly. But we're going to look at more other options because there are ways to smoke IDJB. Like again, they can randomly win versus with their air dash button, and they could do something like double jump. Like even versus double jump, ID jump B has so much frame advantage that you can actually get in position to fully punish it. But like let's say you're scared of getting counter poked by like a JA or something, and you don't want to ID. You don't want to double jump ID back instantly because you don't want to get counter poked by a random button because it's not like super duper consistent. Unlike we'll see later where it becomes super consistent when they're using the more vertical part of JB. So in that case, this is where just doing JA works. It takes a bit of time to get used to it because you want to cancel it and you can't like buffer the JA. I mean, you can just mash it, but I don't like doing that. But it works. If you do this, you do it like this. Essentially, if your opponent tries to like air dash at you, they literally don't have the frames to press anything. Like you can see that the dummy is set to do something frame perfectly out of air dash, and it's not able to do it at all. Like even something like G2C or something like JA. If I do it properly, they can't stop the JA spam. But let's say they, don't do an ID at me and they said just double jump and try to delay something. As soon as you see the double jump, you can just jump back JB. You can even neutral jump JB at this spacing. So that's really good because the double JA thing doesn't take any air options and it prevents most people from mashing at you. Like there's definitely going to be like a random character or two that can beat you mashing JA from a character 2 character lengths away. But I tested it versus Nero and it seemed to work consistent versus him most of the time. I don't think his JB or JC were weirdly winning out like they typically tend to do in these sort of situations. And like let's say you want to use your double jump. I don't really suggest using your double jump when you're even to your opponent, but like I think when it comes to double jumping, just drifting back and taking note of their situation is important. Like if they use a double jump to try to chase after you, like let's say you were at that level with your opponent because you ID'd at them, so you only have double jump left. I still think the JA thing is the strongest thing you could do, but of course you're going to have a little bit of forward momentum after the jump B, so it might not be as clean as spacing. But let's say you want to use your double jump. I think neutral jump drift back is the like strongest option because a lot of characters can't like chase after the drift back without overcommitting and getting themselves hit by an anti. And then you get like a full combo, something like this essentially. Okay. So let's set up the second set of scenarios where your opponent is super high up above you. So I'm just going to pause to set that up real quick. I think I'm also going to turn down the volume a little bit on Melty Blood. So just give me a second to set up the second set of situations. Okay, so time for the next set of situations. In this dummy set, I have it to load when the JB is hitting near the farther edge and the opponent's a little bit like they're being hit by the second half of the JB. In this in this example, the person is getting hit with a collision to the left of JB's hurt box, like the upper vertical half of the hurt box. And we're going to be talking about both of these situations because I believe them both to be relatively important. Like if your opponent is this high up, they don't have their double jump unless you drop the combo and they're up in the skybox, in which case you need to take this information with a little bit of a grain of salt because we're going to be assuming they don't have the double jump for this set of JB interactions. This is where the instant air dash back into JB becomes super duper valuable because I mean it is such an easy way to stop an opponent from doing something cheeky like air dashing button. And in this situation, it just like flat out smokes any sort of attempt at doing that. even assuming they don't get counter hit, like if you slightly delay the air dash back, you gain more height, you are more likely to counter hit them. But let's say you are not delaying it for any sort of reasons. Like if they chase at all, you're going to be able to react to the air dash like relatively easily. I think I have a dummy that's set to IDJB or JC or something. IDJB, like that gets very cleanly smoked. Even IDJC gets smoked super cleanly. I'm just going to quickly record this to IDJC just to showcase the point. Yeah. And this is regardless of whether you hit with the inner or the outer half of the JB. If we go through the damage, you're going to quickly see instant ID back JP works very well, regardless of the spacing. So you don't gotta take that much care for the spacing in regards to this option. And again, using both your double jump and your air dash back in order to skyrocket yourself to the ground to get better advantage is the strongest option off of Kohaku JB in general. And that's something I don't think has been taken advantage of enough. But of course, it's really hard to position your JBs well enough so that you have both your air options left. So let's talk about the situation that occurs when you only have jump left. Because sometimes you have to air dash in order to get yourself into the correct position to air DG JB. So let's talk about when you only have jump. Like in this situation, I think neutral jump is really strong because if you air dash, you can actually fully react to the air dash and go after them on reaction. I mean, if they don't air dash, like in these dummies, or if they just press a button, you can pretty much just drift back into neutral and have like you're not in as much advantage as you like because you are landing second, but like your opponent has no air options to chase you with other than air dash, and even if they air dash like super duper late, okay, let's record an example. This line doing exactly that, they're not going to make enough ground on you in order to be super threatening. In fact, because they are doing that air dash, you can actually start like let's say like you drift back press JC. If they try to like press a button in order to try to chase better, they're going to get hit by the JC. Maybe even the JB. Like you could argue that you shouldn't drift at all and just block. Like if you hold down back, you don't drift. So you can just do that and chase and discourage any sort of like delayed air dash chance. And by doing that, you also get to react to the early air dash in order to try and like press buttons versus you. I mean, you don't really have to worry about like random buttons like from this because again, you can just hit J-A twice, and it's really hard for things to like be a much threat to you. Because the spacing is just really good. Like they tried to do anything, they actually get naturally clutched up. I mean, this is a character that does have J2C and JC, so that's why I'm using her for this example because she has natural cross-ups. So like versus more regular characters, you can just like JAA and just fall to the ground and watch and see how your opponent hangs themselves. But I think being aware of your ability to just jump and that being the general best option to do, even regardless if your opponent has double jump or air dash left, is something that's really important to know because I don't exactly see it a lot. I don't do it a lot in my own play. I still have to test these ideas out and get used to doing them in real matches. So this is just like a whole bunch of labbing that I did over the course of a week in regards to just making sure I could get stronger pressure off of my JB's blocks and stop hanging myself after my opponent blocks a JB. And I think that's mostly it. Like, even if I change it to the dummy that is, like, farther away, if they try to react with the air dash button, they really don't have enough range for me to stop them with an cold air throw. Although there is one last thing that I want to talk about in regards to options. If you hit with the upper half of JB, you get a really interesting block string. At this height, Super Jump JC becomes like hits like really early. Like yeah, let me click view screen so you can see it real quick. This is a frame off from being a perfect super jump JC, but like I think you need the frame for the super jump to actually be read, so it doesn't matter. But as you can see, it hits like 1, 2, 3 frames after the neutral frame. This means that even if Len had a 4-frame air normal, she would not be able to stop the JC from hitting her. That means that we can do a whole bunch of bullshit. Like if we hit with the upper half of JB and we have our double jump, we can cancel it into a super double jump JC in order to prevent our opponents from pressing anything. We do have to be careful to not get 236C. I think this is worth because the reward is so high if they do press something. Like in this example, I'm using the very tip of JB, and there are heights in which it would be better to just a regular jump JC, but I think this jump, I showcased the extreme of us being like horizontal to each other, and this is like us being like omega displays to showcase that this JC idea works consistently. Now, what if they don't press a thing and they just block, which is a pretty understandable option? Like, what does JC connect here? Yes. If I do it fast enough, it will connect. Yeah, like that. But what do you do after it connects like that? As you can see, we're hitting with the very lower half of JC here. Like if we just regular jump and we block string into JC, you can see that we're really even to her. This won't stop her from air dashing over it, so we really do need to super jump. And if we super jump, and I pause it and go back a bit, you're going to see that I'm slightly above her, and she's going to lose all horizontal. She's going to lose all vertical air movement since she's blocking in the air, and she's going to plummet to the ground faster than I will. In fact, if we press nothing, she's going to land on the ground about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 frames faster than me, which is not good, especially versus Len, because Len has Catwalk, which is active frame 3 or something. It shrinks at max to max shrinkage at frame 3 or whatever. So we don't want to be like, of course, you can do something like delay JA in order to discourage some sort of like cheeky air dash or something. Like, let's show an example of, we'll save this over slot 3, I think. Yeah, let's save it over slot 3, and we'll have the dummies do all sorts of bullshit because they still have their air dash, right? Here we JB. Be your opponent doing something like J2C, but we're going to do something like J2C Catwalk or something like that. We're going to use frame tool because I can't hit a JB apparently. 8 frames of blocks done. Wait. We're going to do something that frame perfectly at a block stun, and we're going to hold 3 for like and force the opponent, force each lane to catwalk for about 30 frames or something. Okay. Now let's see how we deal with that. If you immediately notice, our JA pushes our hitbox up a little bit, so we can actually hit the JB safely. And if the opponent doesn't decide to catwalk immediately, we can block. There's also the option of air dash. If we spend 50 meters, we can air dodge, blah. And if we have our air dash, we can just corner ourselves in order to, try to put ourselves into a slightly better situation. Like, of course, this is wasting a lot of guard bar, but it's just a nice way to like block string opponents from max range JBC that punishes them from being greedy at all. Like you can see, even if like let's say she does something like let's set this recording to like JC in a near frame perfect JC into catwalk. That actually extends her hurt box up. Wait. like it doesn't even risk the JA hitting it. And if she does something like JB into, let's do frame perfect JB into mash JA on the ground, she actually, yeah, you see she's not able to get her JA out. So she has to commit to catwalk, and she's not going to be able to get anything better than like maybe like a catwalk throw. She's super duper nice with it. And I think that's literally all the situations I laughed. There is one funny situation that I think I'll show you guys because I think it's really, really funny. I did a little bit of laughing versus Nero because I said he was a problem character. I got a situation with H-Kkohaku 623A that was super duper funny that I want to share a case. But I think that's it for the main ideas of this video in regards to how you should use Kohaku in general with JB in order to block string people who are in the air. And I hope this guide is useful because I used to complain a lot about people getting to do a whole bunch of bullshit versus me when they blocked JB. And this guide is ideally meant to make it so that the Kohakus in the future who watch it know exactly how to make their opponent's life a living hell after they force them to block JB. We're going to save the slot to 1, I think. What frame? How many frames? Okay, that's good. We're gonna hit, and then we're gonna set the dummy to do what? What was it that made the funny interaction work? Okay, I remember now. So we're gonna set the dummy to delay JB. Nero's delay JB is a huge problem because it's so huge. I am bad at playing Nero, obviously, so I'm not really that good in the day into frame perfect JB, but it doesn't have to be frame perfect. At this distance, a really funny interactions happens with 63A. You actually don't mind getting hit like that, but you can get it to trade. And the reason the interaction can be so favorable is because the hitbox for J63A is horizontally and vertically disjointed, and it's active for 5 whole frames. Like the very first 2 frames are like this. Like, the first frame is not that great for using the horizontal disjoint, but it is there. But frames 2 through 5 are mega fucking disjointed and very silly. So you can get like some weird stuff with this hurtbox. Because look at how vertically it extends. You're actually able to, it's less disjointed than Kohaku 623A. So I was actually able to get a very funny situation. I want to showcase it on, I can't replicate it that quickly. So instead of wasting you guys' time, this video is already 30 minutes. And I'm just going to showcase it using the images I took about a whole ass hour ago. So like you can see, 623A versus Nero JB, it's ever so slightly more disjointed. I'm not even ever so slightly, it's notably more disjointed than his JB, so he gets counter hit from 6 million miles away. Thank you for watching this video on how to better block string off of Kohaku's JB. I hope it's useful. I will upload a couple of like minor, like I did do labbing on H-Kkohaku and C-Kkohaku and see what their answers, how their answers differed than H-Kkohaku's, and I will just upload that in the future. So thank you, and I'm sorry for this being a little bit late, but it just turned out that way. I wanted to upload this yesterday. I tried to upload it twice, didn't work. So